Hey, what's up, everyone? Thank you all so much for joining us for today's webinar. We're going to be talking about making change actions, pretty much ECNs on the cloud. I'll start with just a brief introduction. My name's Jared. I'm one of the application experts with MLC Cad Systems. This is actually an old picture of me, but I'm just kidding. This is actually me. So a little bit of my background prior to coming on board with MLC Cad Systems. I spent about 7 years working in oil and gas equipment manufacturing. So while doing that, I got to use SolidWorks and PDM on a daily basis. They didn't have the 3DEXPERIENCE platform back then, which is kind of what we're going to be talking about now. So this is really like some more futuristic kind of stuff that we're going to be looking at. But I've received my master's in engineering and technology management from Louisiana Tech. I spent 6 years in the National Guard, a year of which was overseas in Iraq in 2010. And other than that, I like doing stuff outside, trying to stay fit when I can, when I'm not chasing around my 3 kiddos. So enough about me. I do want to mention MLC Cad Systems. For those of you who are not aware of us, we're a SolidWorks VAR. We also sell Mastercam and Markforged 3D printers. This is where we operate as far as like SolidWorks is concerned, is these red and green states that you see as far as SolidWorks desktop is concerned. We also have a huge territory out here out west where we can sell Mastercam. When it comes to 3DEXPERIENCE though, something that's kind of interesting, we actually can sell that product nationwide. So if you're interested in 3DEXPERIENCE SolidWorks, any of the 3DEXPERIENCE offerings, we can sell that product nationwide. So it does not matter where you're located. We would be happy to work with you. Hopefully you get the chance to see why our motto is unbeatable service. So what we're talking about today is going to be ECNs, like I mentioned, change actions. Well, you might ask the question, what's wrong with how I do it right now? You know, I've been in business for X amount of years. I've been operating this way for however long. You know, it's working for me. What's wrong? So a couple of things about traditional ECN processes is that they're often disconnected, which leads to inefficiency and makes them more prone for errors. Errors, probably more so than inefficiency, can be exceptionally costly. I mean, imagine, you know, manufacturing the wrong revision of something because you have an error-prone ECN process. Some of y'all might have some experience with that. So that's kind of, you know, the big things I see as far as using traditional disconnected kind of processes here. So as far as how the platform can help with this, remember the platform is all about collaboration, all about being unified. So what that leads to is enhanced accuracy and automation, which is inherently more efficient. So that's kind of what we're going to be exploring. Just a quick roadmap for today as far as what we'll be covering. We'll be talking about doing change actions on an initial release. So meaning, as you know, to release the actual product, meaning, hey, this is, you know, it's finally moving into a released type of maturity state. We can make change actions for that. And that might seem a little bit strange, but it's more common than you might think, really, to use that type of method. Especially in larger companies, it can be a formal type of action to let people know, hey, like this is a released document now. So we'll look at that first. We'll kind of push some files into that released type of workflow state. And then what we'll look at, we'll kind of imagine that we've found an issue with that. And we'll identify that issue using an application that's built into the platform. We'll create a change action to create these new revisions that from that identified issue. And this is going to happen. You'll see a lot of automation and interoperability happening here. And then finally, we'll talk about how you can work under a change action inside of SolidWorks, which again is a nice automated process. It'll identify files that are getting changed and automatically add them to the change action. So this is really good stuff here. I'm going to go ahead and flip into my web browser. So what we're looking at right here is the platform. This is just a dashboard that I've built out. This is the bookmark editor, so I can easily kind of see the files that I'm working with. And then this is just a previewer that I have over here on the right side. So again, what we're after here, we want to create a change action that's going to document the release of these files. So let's go ahead and see what that looks like. I'm going to switch over into this Change Actions tab now, which of course is going to show me all of my active change actions. I can come in, take a look at these. And I mean, of course, you've got really good integration that's happening here. So like if I wanted to, I can just drag whatever files are proposed for these change actions into the 3D Play viewer. And I've even got cool stuff like the ability to do an automatic exploded view where I can come in, move stuff around, just kind of take a look at those particular files. So that level of integration is really nice. I think that's one of the things that's going to surprise a lot of people who move into using the platform. But enough about that. Let's go ahead and make our change action. So I'll go ahead and I'll just click on this new change action. We're going to call this thing Release Vice Project. Let's go ahead with that. Of course, you can also set up automatic naming schemes if you'd like to. This brings us into the change action itself. So from here, I've got a couple of different tabs, and I'll talk about all of these as we step through them. This Members tab, really important. Of course, you can add additional members to this change action, and you can add them as either an assignee. So anyone in your company, you can just come in, pick from a list. Assignees would be the ones actually doing the work. Approvers are the people that are going to be approving this thing. And then informed users, maybe you have somebody like in purchasing that needs to know when this thing's released. That way I can start buying the parts for it. Well, drop them in there as an informed user, and they get notified as changes happen to this change action. So real nice and easy setup there. I'm going to go ahead and make myself an approver, just due to the fact that I'm kind of flying solo right now. I don't have anybody helping me out on this, so I need to be able to approve my own stuff. When it comes to the proposed changes, these are the documents that you actually, want to do the work on, the changes on. So I'm going to go ahead. I'll select the assembly and the drawing in my bookmark editor. And remember, everything's super integrated, so I just have to drag it into the proposed changes area. Boom, done. This is now associated with this change action. If I ever open up this change action, I can see the files associated with it. I can also see, I can go in the opposite direction too. Like if I can find this assembly, then I just look at the relations and I can see that change action is associated with it. So pretty cool, pretty easy to use thus far, right? I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to move this from maturity, I'm going to set it to in work. So if any work would need to happen on this, that's where your assignee would come in. Remember, I'm kind of flying solo at the moment, so I kind of have to make do with that. Now, remember, this is super well integrated, so let's say I'm the assignee. I come in, I log into the platform, I'm now notified that I need to do this project. I can come in directly into here and just say, hey, I want to open up this document with design with SolidWorks. And that'll start the process to open up that document. I'll go ahead and flip into my SolidWorks screen here. Here's my document, or my assembly that I was working with. For those of you who are familiar with SolidWorks PDM, you'll be pretty happy to know that this interface over here on the task pane is very similar to PDM. We can see what maturity state it's in. We can see who has the file locked or unlocked, what rev it is, and of course we can also come in, and if we want to, we can open up the drawing as well. So I'll go ahead and open up our drawing document just so we can take a look at that. So here's our drawing. Now we can see the drawing, the assembly, all the related files that are here. They're all in work. I also want to point out that we've got this little hard hat down here, this Release Vice Project. That's the change action that we're working under. And what that means is that whenever we're making changes to these files, they're being captured by the change action itself. So if I come in and now I'm ready, I want to do a release of these things. So I'll select all my files, go to maturity, and I can change this to a frozen type of workflow state. Frozen, just like everybody else's favorite movie. I've got 2 daughters, so I definitely watch a lot of Frozen. But Frozen you can think of as a workflow state where, hey, the files are in fact frozen. Nobody can change them. We're not interested in changing them. we just want to have them under review at the moment. So nobody can come in and make changes at the moment. We're just taking a look at them, right? So I'm going to go ahead. I'll close out of this inside of SolidWorks. I've kind of done my part up into this part. So I'm going to flip over into, back into the web browser now. And now that, and I might have to do a quick refresh here. Yeah, there we go. So now that I've performed those actions inside of SolidWorks, these automatically get added to the realized changes area of the change action. So now you can come in, these are all linked. Notice how there are more files than what I put in the proposed changes. I think this is great, by the way. Maybe I just accidentally selected just the drawing and the assembly, but the person doing the work in SolidWorks, whatever changes actually happen get automatically added to that realized changes area in the change action. That's critical. I really like that functionality here. So from here, the files are now frozen. I can change our change action now to set it into approval. Again, this would notify the person that needed to know about it. Right now, again, I'm flying solo, so I'm the one that's making all these changes here. So I log into the platform. I know I've got some work to do. I need to approve this change action. Of course, I can review the actual documents, make sure they're up to snuff, and then go to this Approvals tab, where I can select this area of the route. By the way, this route is customizable. So if you have multiple people that might need to sign off on something, you can set that up as well. This is a customizable type of interface. In case you have a more complex approval process, maybe for your company, you can set that kind of stuff up. In my case, I'm just going to come over here in the comments and say approved for release. And then I'll click my thumbs up over here to say, hey, this change action is good to go. And that's going to do a couple of things here. For one, it's going to generate some notifications. And you can see them coming through over here on my screen. Of course, if you were an informed user, you would be getting notified of that. And you can also link those notifications to your email as well. So if you want to keep people informed while they're out and about, you can set that kind of information up as well. I'm going to move back over to the bookmark area and do a quick refresh of this tab. And I want to point out that these documents are now in a released state. So this is pretty, not critical here, but it's pretty nice that this is happening automatically. And I want to point out that the reason that this happened is because those files were a part of that change action. And when that change action got approved, the files were released with it. Again, so that's what it looks like to do a change action for an initial release. What we'll look at next is probably a little bit more commonly used. It's identifying an issue and then creating a change action to document the corrective action. And then, of course, we'll look at working under the change action inside of SolidWorks again. So let's say I'm out on the shop floor. I've got the collaborative industry innovator role, which grants me access to the platform. I can see the data management side of things. Of course, you can control what kind of permissions you've got going on in there. But let's say I'm out here on the shop floor and I'm trying to put together this vise, and I'm trying to mount it to the table, and maybe the bolt holes right here are just too small. It's not working out. So I need to identify that and get that information back up to engineering. So one of the things that you can do with the collaborative industry innovator role is do something called a markup. And this can be done on any device. So I want to point out that you don't need a workstation grade machine. You could theoretically do this kind of stuff on a tablet if you wanted to. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to drop in this base right here. I'm going to drop this into the markup application. And we'll kind of take a look at what that looks like. So here's the base that we're working with. We've already talked about how the holes are too small here. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new markup. I'll just drop in a brief title. You can put a description if you want to here. I'm not going to get overly complicated or anything. And then we can drop in some text kind of pointing out maybe what the issue is. And you could even fill in information like, hey, this needs to be, I don't know, X over X inches diameter. Not really sure what it needs to be. Maybe if I was actually working on the shop floor, I'd have that info. But we can go ahead and this information can get saved. And from this markup that we have, we can actually do something called generate an issue. So this is another way that you can actually track legit issues like this, right? So I'll go ahead and I'll generate an issue for this. We'll say holes too small. This is our description right here. If you've ever flagged this in the past, these similar issues will actually show up as well. Finally, we can recommend like how is this going to be fixed, enlarge to a certain diameter. We can control the priority, how urgent this is, and the due date, and then we can jump directly into, and we could either jump directly into creating an issue, or in this case, I'm going to go ahead and just save it as a draft for now. All right, so cool. I've got an issue created. If I flip over into my Issues tab here, and what I can see is the issue that I just created. So this could be the same person taking a look at the issue. It could be someone that's in the position of dictating what's going on with particular issues. This is pretty flexible. But of course, we talked a little bit about the integration that we have here. We could kind of drag and drop that in and get a good understanding maybe of what's going on, right? So all that information is there for us. What I'm going to do now is kind of focus on what we can do with this issues tool. Now, similar to the change actions, we can add additional personnel or additional members, to this issue. If we wanted to, we could also put pictures. Maybe we could drop in pictures of this, and have that as an attachment. That way, we could actually provide real-time feedback for the type of situation that's going on, that's happening on the shop floor, right? So I really like the integration here. Again, if you're doing it from a mobile device, you can just snap a picture and let everyone know what's happening. So pretty good stuff. You do have the ability to assign issues to people, just for time's sake, to kind of keep everybody, and to kind of keep this brief. I'm not going to go through the entire issue assigning process. We'll kind of save that for the change action. But you do have the ability to, hey, go investigate this issue, see what the resolution is going to be, and you can kind of push that through its own type of workflow. What we're going to do is we can add a new change action as resolved by. So we're going to go ahead and create a change action to correct this stuff. Enlarging holes. Okay, cool deal. We'll go ahead and let's just begin work on this one. We'll jump straight into creating a change action for that one. So I'll flip over into my Changes tab. We'll do a quick refresh. And here we go. Here, our holes are too small. We can go ahead and, that's the change action that I just created. Again, this kind of looks a little fast right now because I'm doing it all in one member. This type of work could be split up into different team members. Somebody doing the markup on the shop floor, maybe a quality manager taking a look at the actual issue itself, and then maybe, I don't know, an engineering person taking a look at creating the actual change action. All right, so from here, again, we can assign our members as needed. I'm going to go ahead and put myself as an approver one more time here. So now that we've got our change action that's been created, we can, of course, dish this out to whoever needs to do the actual work. And whenever that person opens up the change action, they can get into the Proposed Changes tab again and see immediately, this shows up here automatically, comes in from the actual issue identification. And as we've seen already, they can go ahead and open that up with, directly from the change action itself. So I'll flip into our SolidWorks environment now, and here's the actual part that we need to change. Now, anybody who's done a fair amount of changes inside of any type of CAD environment understands that if you change a part like this, it's most likely going to also affect additional higher level assemblies or drawings or anything like that. So that's where this Relations app really comes into play. So you can open up the actual component that you're about to make the change to and see the files that it's related to. You can even see any of the markups or issues that have been created or change actions that have been created and associated with these things. So from here, I can see pretty easily that, well, this component right here, this top level vice assembly, is going to need to be adjusted as well. So I can go ahead and open that up directly from the Relations application and explore that more fully and figure out the changes that I need to make at that level. So I'm going to open up the drawing from here now that I have this up and running. And we need to talk about a few things. Of course, whenever we're making a fairly significant change, we need to make a new revision of that particular object. So we've already explored the base, so we know we need to make a change to that. We know we need to make a change to the top level assembly, as well as the assembly's drawing that it's referencing. Now, all these files right now are in released. They were moved to released whenever we did the change action initially to release them. So what we need to do is create a new revision of these particular objects. So with those three objects highlighted, I'll go ahead and say, hey, I'm going to make a new revision of these files. We can put a comment in here like enlarging holes on base. That way we have some amount of traceability. And we'll go ahead and create those new revisions of those particular files. So now take a look at what's going on here. We've got new revisions, so revision B, right? And the maturity state for those files are now in work. So I've automatically locked them, meaning I'm the only one that's, that can actually come in and make a change to those files. And I'm going to keep this pretty simple here. We'll go ahead and we'll find the actual holes that are responsible for this. I can enlarge them just to kind of show a little bit of context. Let's just say they needed to be 10 millimeters. All right, cool. Of course, we go ahead and we make the changes that we need. Any other, reference type documentation, if you want to put revision comments in your drawing, you can knock all of that out. Again, for time's sake, I'm going to go ahead and kind of just save this stuff up. Make sure I save them to the cloud, and that way it's all current. Once this information is saved, and I'll give this a second. Again, I'm doing all this stuff. This is all real time. So this is live type performance that we're showing. What I'll do here up next is I need to adjust the maturity state of these files. So I'll go ahead and select maturity, change my state to frozen, click OK. That means they're under review. So now that these files are frozen, again, I want to pay attention to the fact that this little hard hat right here is highlighted in yellow. That means that this holes are too small type of change action. That's capturing these changes that I've made. So the only file that I placed in the actual change action itself was this base, but I'm going to go ahead, I'll stop working under the change action. Oh, let me hide this. So I'll stop working under the change action, I'm done. And I could probably actually go ahead and close out of all this stuff. We'll flip back into our platform inside of the browser. Again, so we've got our proposed changes that have been taken care of, but take a look at the realized changes. So all of this information is getting captured as well. So all these are frozen because we made changes to them. So I just want to point that out, that automation is happening for us right here. And from here, what we can do, now that the work is done, I can set this to approval. Whoever needs to approve it gets notified. We can switch over to that approvals tab like we did earlier. I'm just going to type in a simple comment and click OK. Now what we have going on here, of course, the appropriate parties get notified automatically. Our change action is now complete. If we switch over to the Bookmarks tab and do a refresh here, I want to show that right now, if we come in here, it'll let us know whether or not the particular file is of the latest revision. So we can click on here in our bookmark and see that, oh, this drawing document that we have now has a later revision. So we're always warned of that. And there are also settings that you can enable that allow you to automatically update this. So to where whenever a new revision does get created and is released, it'll automatically replace itself in whatever bookmark you're using. That way you're kind of always using that latest version. So again, I just want to highlight the fact that this is such a connected environment. And you can roll it out and keep everyone who needs to be informed immediately. It's so interconnected. You can drag and drop stuff, and it just makes things and makes life so much easier and accurate as well. So now what I'd like to do here, since we've kind of covered what change actions are, at least briefly, of course there's a whole slew of additional types of change management that you can do with this software. It's super powerful, but I showed this in a way that I think applies to a lot of different companies. So I'd love to open up the floor for anybody. If they have questions, please drop them in the chat window. And again, thank you so much for joining us today.